Do you need to be an internet security expert to protect your client's data? This is the Issues Watch podcast. Hi, I'm Don Meyer, Chief Marketing Officer at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the Issues Watch podcast. As an accounting professional, you are entrusted to safeguard your client's most sensitive personal and financial information. In today's highly digital landscape, that means earning and maintaining client trust hinges on prioritizing cybersecurity. Here with me to discuss best practices for mastering cybersecurity for accounting firms is Heidi Rogers of CPACharge, a provider of online payment solutions for accounting firms. CPACharge is also an NJCPA Premier Partner. Welcome, Heidi.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Don.
Thanks for being here. So, Heidi, CPACharge recently wrote an article for our members titled 4 Ways to Protect Your Client's Data. Let's start by listing those 4 ways, and then we'll go into greater detail on each one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the main thing is that there are 4 main ways that you as a CPA or an accountant can protect your data. One is identifying your firm's cyber assets. 2 is strengthening your passwords. 3 is fortifying physical and digital, your digital office. And then 4 is ensuring data security and PCI compliance.
All right, great. So let's dive into the first one. So the first way to protect client data is by listing a firm's cyber assets.
Mhm.
What do you suggest CPAs include in that list?
Yeah, great question. To identify your cyber assets, I would recommend creating a document listing out all of your technology, all of your systems that your firm uses. And what I would include is networking infrastructure. So, do you have wired or Wi-Fi networks? Include any guest networks. Note what devices are connected and who has access. Secondly, all of your systems and hardware. I would list all PCs, laptops, mobile devices, file servers, network attached storage devices. Um, Third, I would do applications and data. So include any software that you use, such as like practice management solution, billing tools, management systems, credit card and ACH systems such as CPACharge that we have. I would list all of those. And then fourthly, users. I would make sure that you have a comprehensive list of all of the users on the accounts and then the systems and who has what access privileges. And that inventory will sort of help you, understand what needs to be protected and allows you to identify any, potential vulnerabilities.
When I read the article, I was actually surprised, and maybe I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised that users or people is actually something you should list as a cyber asset. Do you think that's something that a lot of companies overlook? Because they probably think of
Yes.
technology, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a huge point that people just kind of go across and they don't really think about the fact that they need to be listing all of their employees and who has access and who doesn't. And then if somebody leaves the firm, making sure that, they no longer have access to everything. Even if they left on like great terms, you still should, make sure that you immediately close everything out from them so they can't get into the systems at any point. I think that that's a real spot that people kind of miss at times. And it's very important. So.
Right. And of all the things on that list that you mentioned, I guess people are probably the weakest link in the chain, aren't they?
They are indeed. Yes, they
Yes,
are
yeah.
indeed.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the second recommendation
Yeah.
is strengthening passwords. And I assume we're not talking about just adding a special character to an existing password, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot more to strengthening your passwords than just being like, cool, I'm going to put an exclamation mark at the end of that, my child's name and birthday.
You just gave away my secret. So I'm gonna have
Oh
to
no,
change all my
not that.
passwords now.
Yeah, now, all my dog, I need to get rid of all of his.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say there's a few different things that you can do. One that I do is I use a password manager. So something like a dash lane, LastPass, one password, keeper security, anything like that. Those are just examples. Um, it's a manager that is a tool that stores your passwords and it makes it easier to use unique and complex passwords for every account. I think the reason this is so important is because we're like, oh, I'm so tired of changing my passwords and I forget them and I have to write them down on paper and all that stuff. With a password manager, you only are really changing the password manager password once in a while, and then it's auto-populating all of your passwords into everything else that you use. So it's a really, really helpful tool. I use mine all the time, and it's really been a game changer for me. I would also recommend creating strong passphrases. So something that's at least 12 characters long, use uppercase, lowercase letters, use numbers, use symbols. Avoid words and personal information. I know this is really hard for people, myself included, but yeah, don't use your kids, name and birthday. Don't use your spouses. Don't use your partners. Don't use your cat or dogs. Try to do something outside of that. And then definitely adding a MFA, which is a multi factor authentication. So that adds just an extra layer of security, and it requires both a password and like a code to log in, for example. So those are some of the things that I would recommend using for updating the passwords in your system, making them better.
Yeah, and I can say on a personal level, I swear by LastPass. I don't know what I would do if I
Yeah.
lost access to LastPass. That has made everything
Yeah.
so much easier.
It makes everything so much easier. And you can put it on your computer, put it on your phone. It can be everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things a couple of years ago, when I was trying to think of how to fortify my passwords to avoid some of those pitfalls that you just mentioned, one of the things I heard was to use a line from your favorite song, not the song title, but a line, because that way it
Oh,
could be
I
fairly
love
lengthy.
that.
It's specific to you. So I just thought that was a good one, and I have taken advantage
Yeah.
of that, although I'm not going to say what my favorite song is.
Of course. Yeah. No, I would say too, like if you have like movies that you love, or even a recent movie or TV show that you've watched, but like don't use the name of the title, maybe like use like a character's name or a street name or and just kind of mix that all around along with upper lowercase and exclamation marks and all that stuff and make it a really solid password. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about number three. That's fortifying the physical and digital office. What do you mean by that?
So when it comes to securing, a physical office environment, or it doesn't matter if it's digital, if you're remote, what have you, I think it really starts with making sure that you have a great Wi-Fi network. And I know some people still don't use Wi-Fi, but most people are moving that direction. So I would say make sure you're changing the default passwords on your wireless router to something secure and strong and unique as soon as possible. That's something that everyone, I think, when we get our Wi-Fi, we're just like, oh, good, it's done, and we forget to change everything from the default. So that's really important. Securing administrative access to your router, ensuring only the authorized personnel that you have selected can make those changes. So making sure it's not just on a sticky note somewhere that anybody in your office can get. And then on the physical side, I would restrict access to sensitive areas or devices that prevent unauthorized entry. So I would say, combine all of these together. You're going to significantly reduce your risk of data breaches, both, physically and digitally.
Okay. Yeah, I've done, cybersecurity compliance, and sometimes they show an example of someone who or they give an example of someone who enters into an office, they don't work
Mm-hmm.
there, and they take a flash drive and they insert it. And I'm thinking, does that
Yep.
actually happen, or has that happened? But apparently it does.
It does, and it can. It's not just in spy movies. Yeah, it is a thing.
Yeah, okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So lastly, this one might be the most tricky. Please explain what it means to be PCI compliant.
Yes. So this is a question. I've been here at CPACharge for 7 years. I'm a senior account manager on our team. And one of the questions I get the most often when people come to us and ask, how does your system work with, credit card and ACH security and all that stuff? Like, how do we know that your system is safe? And for us, that, as a company, a CPACharge, we have to be PCI level 1 compliant, which is basically the highest level of compliance and security in the payment card industry. And that's what PCI means. It means payment card industry data security essentially. So it's PCI DSS if you want to know the technical acronym, and it applies to any business accepting credit card or debit card payments. And even if you are just taking like e-check ACH payments, which some people do, only use that part of our system, for example, you still need to be PCI compliant because it's all online and web based, and you have the ability to take cards if you wanted to. So there are a few things that we ask our the folks who use CPACharge to do. And one is we want to make sure that they're following some just basic protocols to make sure that everything's safe and secure. And so one is building and maintaining a secure network, using firewalls on your computers, keeping them updated. This is something that most people do just as a part of their everyday work. This is not something that's like super special. Most people have basic firewalls on their computer, but just making sure that you do have good ones and that they're up to date. Second is protecting your cardholders' data with secure payment solutions. So again, as an example, if you use CPACharge, everything is saved securely on our secure, servers. Nothing is being saved on your computers in your office. We have a card vault that encrypts all of the cards and bank account information that people put into the system. So for example, you and your staff could never like take the full card information and go buy something on Amazon or what have you. It's all encrypted and you can only see the last 4 digits for identification purposes. We make it where, if people decide to, use our system to pay by credit card, it's going to ask them for certain parts of identification so that it's not just somebody using somebody's random card. It's asking you the information so that that's being put into the system properly and securely. So definitely, making sure that you protect your cardholder data through a secure system like ours. Maintaining a vulnerability management program, so updating, any anti-malware and antiviruses. Implementing strong access control, so making sure, again, only authorized personnel can access that sensitive data. So one of the great things with our system is that you can customize it in CPACharge where only certain people in your, on your staff have full access to our system. So you can make them like an admin where they can do and see everything in the system versus maybe you have a brand new front desk person. You can make it in our system where like they can only take payments or they can only see the transactions they've actually done. It's not going to like let everybody in your company have access to everything. So it allows you to kind of narrow down who can do and see what in your system. And so that's another one of our kind of CPACharge benefits. I would say, making sure you monitor and test your networks regularly just to make sure that all of your, security protocols are in place. And then lastly, maintain an information security policy. So, that outlines how your firm handles and protects sensitive information. So I just think it's really when people hear PCI compliance, sometimes they get stressed out, but it really is just like essentially securing client payment data and avoiding any kind of penalties that could come from that data getting exploited or anything like that. And again, no matter what system that you use, whether it's CPACharge or another one, just making sure that you are staying PCI compliant. We just happen, I can say from CPACharge's point of view, we make it really, really easy. We make people do like a 10-question true false questionnaire once a year, and then we take care of the rest of the PCI compliance. Unfortunately, there are some systems out there that make you jump through so many hoops like every quarter, and it's almost impossible to get in compliance. Then you end up spending hundreds of dollars a year not being compliant. And so I can just speak for us, make it really, really easy for people to stay compliant.
So that actually kind of leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
I think cybersecurity stresses out everybody,
Mm-hmm.
particularly CPAs who have
Mm-hmm.
so much client information, so much client data. Can accountants implement these recommendations themselves, or should they really be seeking outside help?
That is another good question. And I think it just really depends on your firm's expertise, the size of your firm. Do you have an IT person on board on a larger firm, or do you have a smaller firm, or are you a sole proprietor that, maybe you don't have as much expertise? So I would say, tasks like cyber assets and updating passwords, very manageable to do in-house. That's something you can easily take care of yourself. However, for more technical processes such as configuring firewalls or completing the PCI compliance questionnaire, it is good to consult a cybersecurity expert and a professional that can help you kind of walk through everything and protect and make sure that your compliance is up to industry standards. And again, it's going to depend on your expertise, how big your firm is, what your budget is for that. But for a lot of people, having somebody do that, even if they just pop in once or twice a year, just to kind of take a look at things, honestly, a lot of times it can be remote. It's worth a little bit of cost to do that just to make sure you're like, cool, I don't need to think about it. I have somebody else dealing with it. And it just makes it really, really easy. So,
Yeah, and I think CPAs are good at doing the cost benefit
oh, yeah,
analysis, and
most
you have to look at,
definitely.
yes, there's an upfront cost, but what's the
Hmm.
potential
Yeah,
liability if something goes horribly wrong?
correct.
So I guess I think CPAs are pretty good at that. So this was that you explained this in very simple terms, even I could understand it. So I
Awesome.
truly
Yay.
appreciate it. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Don. I really appreciate it. And we're a really, just to let you know, we're a really big fan of the New Jersey, CPA Society, and we're happy that we can be a member benefit of y'all's.
Oh, well, we're definitely gonna have to have you back now.
Yay! Thank you.
Thanks for listening and watching. To learn more about protecting client data, visit the NJCPA Risk and Compliance Knowledge Hub at njcpa.org/hub/risk. To learn more about CPA Charge, visit cpacharge.com/NJCPA.